What is blending? The dictionary defines it simply as a mixture of two or more things. If we look at the Wikipedia page for blending, we see there's blending music, paint, words. What kind of blending can the Game Boy Advance do? Hopefully not blending alcohol. The GBA is able to do a very simple version of alpha blending, a transparency technique in computer image generation. Before we get into creating this blending effect on the GBA, let's go through a little overview of how GBA graphics work. When you're playing a game on the Game Boy Advance, everything you see is either a background or a sprite. Backgrounds are large images that can be drawn to the screen. In its regular tile mode, the GBA can display up to 4 backgrounds at a time, with a minimum of 256 pixels by 256, slightly larger than the actual screen, to a maximum of 512 by 512, which is 4 times that size. With some clever programming tricks, you can show much more than just 512 by 512 backgrounds, but you can learn more about that in my previous video. The backgrounds are made up of 8 by 8 tiles, and each of these tiles can only use one color palette of 16 colors. But you can have 16 color palettes active at the same time. And I kinda lied. Technically, there are 16 colors in each color palette, but the first color is actually the transparent color and doesn't render at all. So really, it's only 15 colors. Sprites are smaller images that can be manipulated individually. The GBA can display up to 128 sprites at the same time, and they can range in size from 8 pixels by 8 to 64 by 64. And just like the backgrounds, with some clever programming tricks, you can draw larger sprites by combining multiple sprites together. And just like background tiles, each sprite can only use one 16-color palette, but there can be 16 active palettes at the same time. And again, the first color is the transparent color, so there are actually only 15 colors. When the GBA is displaying these backgrounds and sprites, the developer can define the priority for these images to be drawn. Backgrounds and sprites with higher priority will be drawn first, and then lower priority objects will be drawn on top of that initial drawing. You can think of these as layers, with layer 0, which is priority 3, being drawn first, then layer 1 or priority 2 on top of that, and then 2 and 3 respectively. The transparent colors from the backgrounds and sprites allow you to see through parts of the top layers into the bottom layer. And this is used everywhere, like all the time. There's not a single game that is not using this type of transparency with the transparent color. But there is one more type of transparency that the GBA has, which is alpha blending. Alpha blending, which I'm going to just refer to as blending from here on out, allows sprites and backgrounds to blend together, creating semi-transparency between these objects. The GBA is quite limited in how it achieves this. There's only one blending action that can happen at a time. And this can be pretty limiting for more complex scenes or mechanics in a game. But don't let it fool you. This feature can be used for so many different things. The only limit is your imagination. To set up alpha blending as the developer, I need to set what will be the top layers and what will be the bottom layers for blending. These can be any of the backgrounds or sprites, and an important note here is that the top layers need to be drawn above the bottom layers on the screen for blending to work. So this takes a little bit of attention from you as the developer. From here, we can set the weights of the top and bottom layers anywhere between 0 and 16. I built a really simple app for the GBA, and we're going to dive into it with the No Cache GBA developer tools. You can see here I have 2 backgrounds enabled, one yellow and one blue. The only colors in the palette are pink for transparency and yellow and blue. But if we look at what shows on the screen, it's green. If green isn't in the color palette, how could we have green on screen? Well, what happens when you mix yellow and blue? You get green. And the definition of blending from before was a mixture of two things. So, ding, 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 I was able to blend these two backgrounds together to create this green color without needing a green in the color palette. In what ways could you use this? Let's say you have a game and you want to show that it's turning nighttime without updating your whole color palette or drawing a whole new tile set or having a big scene transition that interrupts gameplay. You could use a full background of blue, and then as the night gets darker, you could adjust the blending weights to be a little bit more blue. The trade-off there is you sacrifice one of the 4 backgrounds that you have available just for this effect, but it's a pretty simple solution, all things considered. There are truly an infinite number of ways that you can use blending to do some really cool stuff. I also built a simple transition between 2 images, a house with the lights off and then the same house with the lights on. This just goes from the top image, the bottom image, and then back to the top image over and over again. And this could be used for cutscenes or maybe to indicate the next phase of a boss fight, or like in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon for a cool visual during the intro questionnaire. Another little demo I made was to use blending like invisible ink. You can turn your flashlight on and off, but if you keep your flashlight on for too long, the text disappears. So you leave it off for a few seconds and then turn it on and have to quickly find the numbers. This style of blending could be used in a puzzle game, or to find some secret text, or for a cutscene where you watch some graffiti on a building or chalk on a sidewalk disappear in the rain. These are just 2 uses for blending that I threw together for this video, but there are so many different ways to configure the blending, with different combinations of backgrounds and sprites and different orientations of the top and bottom layers. There truly are an infinite number of ways to use this blending. The last thing I put together was a little playground tool where you can experiment with the blending of sprites and backgrounds by manually manipulating the blending weights. This also lets you explore the fade to white and fade to black blending modes that I didn't even mention in this video, but are fundamentally very similar. It was a super helpful way for me to see how the blending worked and how the sprites and backgrounds interact with each other, and I got to include my favorite Pokemon, Doduo. If you liked this video, subscribe. I post GBA development videos every other week, exploring different concepts surrounding the GBA hardware and software that made it such an amazing handheld console. If there's a specific concept you want to see or learn more about, leave a comment letting me know. If you want to check out any of the code for any of the projects from this video, I'll leave the link to the GitHub page in the description. If you're just looking for the GBA files to test them out yourself, I'll also leave a link to the release page where you can download each file specifically. Alright, thanks for watching.